Hello fellow tacticians, and welcome to the first video in what I hope will be a new series called Faction Focus. This idea was brought to me by one of the members of my guild named Twelver, who put these graphics together and has done an amazing job with it. But essentially, wanted to take a look at each individual faction and discuss each of the characters so you have a condensed place, a one-stop shop, so to speak, for each faction and where you can learn more about them. Before we begin, I really want to point out the amazing support that I got from the Xenos tier list video. Blew me away. Ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all so much. I tried to reply to every comment, but like before, I was like, you know what? I got this. And then just hundreds upon hundreds of comments. Absolutely amazing. I love the input. We are still picking out our favorite comments. I'm going on a work trip, so please excuse any quality with how thrown together this video is. But I literally fly out in, I think, 6 hours. So definitely trying to get this out to make sure I get everybody your code. Let you know that the rewards are coming for the Malgan Raw shard, so hang tight. It'll be coming. But as a big thank you to all of you for helping me reach 1,000 subscribers, which amazing. I never thought I'd be here. Up here, we have a code, JACE1K. Go ahead and plug it in. Get yourself a few rewards. And the goal is for every 1,000 subs that we get, we'll just keep incrementing those rewards. So right now, we've got ourselves 1 rec order and 1,000 gold. Next time, 2,000, 3,000. You get it. So we bring those subs in. I get y'all some, hopefully some character shards. But if your luck's anything like mine, then some uncommon orbs. So we'll just deal with it as it comes. So we have this full graphic here built up. I've hidden each individual section behind a box that we will slowly reveal, pull back the curtains, and we'll discuss each character. Now, the full graphic, ideally I want to place somewhere on a Wikipedia, so bear with me. As soon as I get back, I'll upload everything onto a Wikipedia, and we'll be money. But let's go ahead and get started with Certus. So here's what we did. We created a couple different categories. We have raids, obviously that's going to be self-explanatory. It's going to be this character's performance in guild raids. PvE is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a culmination of how this character performs on all PvE modes that are not guild raids. So that's going to be your onslaughts, that's going to be your kind of character quests, your legendary release events. It's all encompassing. Now, one thing that you can't see here because it's underneath the faction ranking box, but Certus does have an asterisk next to his name, and essentially, next to PvE, and that essentially means he is required for campaigns. So we didn't really give him an increased rating because he's required for campaign, but just making sure that you're aware. Then we take him into PvP. This can be tournament arena and normal arena. We have the traits, and then we assign kind of like a star ranking for the abilities, and then also just look at the base stats. So now that we've discussed what everything is that we're looking at right here, let's talk about it. Now, Certus is a common unlock. You get him, I think, number 2. You get him in tandem with Bellator? No, so I think you get Varro, then you get Bellator, and then you get Certus, and then after that you get Incisus. So, Certus given to you super early, and he feels really strong at the beginning of the game, but he has a couple things that really cause him to drop off. His damage is fantastic, as you're able to see. However, the issue is he comes in with a bolter at range 3, which is nice, but it's only a 1 hit. And that's kind of the big drawback, because this game, the meta that it's kind of built around, the more hits you do, typically the better. Even if it's significantly lower damage, you apply things like Doom, you apply things like Calgar buff, etc., etc., etc. So I mention all of this because when it comes down to raids, he just doesn't really perform in raids, period. There's only really one hit character, make that 2, that performed decently well. One is Shosil, right, because of the drone spawning in, and now you have Northrop because the damage potential there for 1 hit is absolutely massive. But coming in at 1 hit instantly invalidates him for pretty much raids in general. His passive camo cloak, which we'll talk about, really doesn't do anything there significantly, so it's just the nature of the beast, right? Now, coming in for PvE, he is required for the Indomitus campaign, so that gives him a little bit of valuation right there. Now, for the other campaigns that you could bring him to, like there's other characters that do it better, so not really worth bringing. And I'm talking about like the Octarius Mirror campaign. I'm talking about Fall of Cadia Mirror campaign. Why would I bring Certus when I can bring Bellator, right? And that's kind of the staple across the board here. Anytime that I can bring a sniper, I'd rather have Sark. I'd rather have Calandus. Just instantly better characters. I mean, Malgan Ra's technically a sniper-ish because of the range 3. So, just anywhere that I'd rather want to bring Certus, there's better characters that can do it. Same thing here applies for PvP. Now, maybe there's some argument to be made to move Certus up to maybe 3 stars, 2.5 stars for PvP, just because Overwatch is significantly strong in certain game modes for Tournament Arena. But once again, you're dealing with a 20%, right? One hit. It's not that great. The Overwatch is nice. He also has Infiltrate, which feels really awkward to me. Why? I mean, it's also nice, right? He's a sniper that can snipe other snipers, so that is nice, right? He can ignore and hit long range, but I mean, maybe would be able to shred a Malgan Ra if he crits, right? But unlike Calandus, you don't have the double crit weapon, so you're stuck at what, 35%. And, you know, heavy weapon is beautiful, Overwatch is beautiful, so all those things are really nice. It's just he really falls short. His active ability is a displacement, which was nice back when displacing certain characters actually did percent damage to them. I believe it was the primes for Gazgul, right? If you displaced them, it did a percent damage, which was really nice because they had the boss adjutant trait. So nice. And also, I think he gets double the damage from heavy weapon if he doesn't move and uses the active ability. So it can hit pretty hard. His passive ability, Camo Cloak, reduces the damage anytime hits are reduced, and it's super weak, right? The idea is that he wants to hide in tall grass and then take a ranged attack, but you're better off hitting him with a melee attack. It's just other characters do it better. And ultimately, I feel like Certus falls just really short. Pretty strong character in like the early game, feels nice to use, but just kind of falls off a cliff and doesn't really deliver what you need. Let's move into Varro Tigurius, the first character that you get and pretty much the icon character of this game. Now, we're going to go through like we just did with Certus. Hopefully I won't jump around as much, but there's just so many interconnecting points to really discuss. Once again, falls very short in raids, and pretty much for the same reason, right? He has got a 1 hit, and since he is a Psyker, that means his base damage is significantly lower because he has 100% Pierce on his ranged attack. One thing that I did fail to mention for Certus, and kind of applies also here with Varro, is that the fact that they have a melee physical attack sucks, in the sense that, you know, physical damage is 1% Pierce ratio, that's terrible. But it's also nice for conditions when you have legendary release events and you have the physical damage to really take into consideration. His PvE, he does a bit better here, and you know, you might even argue for another half a star for Varro Tigurius here, but we'll just leave it as is. He is required for the Indomitus campaign, along with Bellator coming up here soon. And one thing that's really nice is he has the active ability that can, you know, mass AoE shred through a lot of characters, right? Now, it's very unique in the sense that it can chain into 5 characters at max rank, or actually rank 36 for the active ability, and the damage is decent. But where he really falls short, once again, is just another defensive passive that doesn't really give you a lot of value added. And I think it's for allies. He reduces the damage that they take, which, yay, but, you know, he's not really in a great spot to be a kind of support character. He does psychic damage and then kind of gives a little bit of a defensive buff. It's very underwhelming. And I believe a lot of your Ultramarines definitely could use a little bit of modernization, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that here when we get to Incisus. But 2 that do not need a little bit of love here are going to be Bellator and Calgar, who we'll talk about. But last thing, PvP, it's okay. Some people line up for you in Tournament Arena. He can shred through them, but it's not even that strong. And I don't even think he's able to kill a lot of things just straight up. Maybe some squishy units that may stack into unideal positions, but it's pretty underwhelming, all things considered. But let's talk about one of those characters that we said do not need a little bit of love. That's going to be Bellator. Bellator comes in as a very strong character for the Ultramarines, and just a strong character in general. He is capped out on both raids and PvE for one reason alone. His Inceptors, well, actually, I can't even say one reason alone. There's so many reasons. His Inceptors come in and soak up so many hits because they have Gravis armor along with him. Gravis armor means that the opponent's damage has to go through your armor twice, and he has a pretty decent armor rating. Now, granted, it's low compared to the likes of Certus and the likes of Varro, but that's because effectively he pretty much has like 1900 armor in this specific instance. It's it's actually like 1990, so it's a lot of armor. Now, his damage looks really low here, but the thing that you got to consider is he's got a melee attack hitting for 6. Not only does he have a melee attack hitting for 6, but all of his Inceptors have a melee attack hitting for 6. And like we talked about when I mentioned Certus, his biggest drawback being that he's a one-hitter, he only applies one iteration of Doom or Calgar buff, right? Bellator doesn't have that problem at all. All of his Inceptors hit very strong and apply. Not only that, but if he stands next to his Inceptors and he attacks, then his Inceptors also repeat their attack. So you could theoretically, each turn, just from Bellator's attack, get 18 attacks, because Bellator attacks, the 2 adjacent to him attack as well, and then you just absolutely shred through bosses. Now for PvE, summoning, up to 5 tanks on the battlefield, that's absolutely massive, and he's going to help you a lot. Now, it really falls off in terms of PvP. Yes, it can be annoying, but the effectiveness and the damage output just aren't there. There could be arguments made to bring them up to about 3.5, maybe 4 stars for PvP, but it's just more of a tanky annoyance factor than it is really a strong factor for you to consider. But Bellator is an absolute menace on the battlefield, and be happy that you get him early on and invest into him heavy for sure. Now, we talked about one of the glowing jewels of the Ultramarines. Now let's talk about one of the shitty turds. It's going to be Incisus. First healer that you get in the game and you're like, yeah, I got a healer, let's go. And then he just falls flat on his face. Coming into raids, he's absolutely useless. There's almost no time that you're going to want to take a healer into the battlefield, and his attack just falls very short. Now granted, it's a pretty strong attack, just base stat-wise, considering it's 80% piercing, but not that great. At PvE, he's nice because it's nice to have a healer, right? Could help you get those 3 stars or whatever the case may be, but there's other characters that do it better, like Isabella, that you're going to want to bring to the battlefield, and he just, if you need it, cool. And for PvP, setting him up into a position where he's really going to be able to deliver the effects on the battlefield is unrealistic. Now, his active ability is an AoE heal. Whoop-de-doo, it's nothing incredible. And then his passive ability gives you a 75% chance to res an adjacent ally. So he has to position himself kind of in the front lines and becomes a big target. Granted, pretty strong tank stats, but you just don't want to use Incisus, essentially. Especially if you have the option to use Isabella, take it. Rounding out the Ultramarines, we have ourselves Marnius Calgar, the Chapter Master. Now, it's really hard to determine who the better character is here because Bellator synergizes well with Calgar, and that's kind of where a lot of your synergy is. But Calgar is an absolute monster. Now, Bellator shines a lot due to the fact that he synergizes well with characters like Calgar and Eldrion. Calgar synergizes in the opposite faction. He is that utility bringing and leveling up other characters on the battlefield. Especially now that we have somebody like Ragnar coming out with 7 hits and Imperial, they can synergize massively. Calgar comes in as one of the biggest buffers in the game. I think the only one that really tops him is going to be Helbrecht when it comes down to Psyker or anti-Psyker buffs, but that is why Calgar is huge. For Imperial units, he provides, I think, 1,300 damage increase, and that's per hit. So you can imagine how that's going to combine with somebody like Bellator and absolutely dominate the battlefield. Now, the positioning is a little harder to use because it needs to be adjacent units, but unlike Helbrecht, he can also apply this to adjacent ranged units. Now, all that being said, his raids skyrocket because of that, his PvE skyrocket because of that, and his PvP skyrockets because of that, plus his active ability. Now, before we get into the abilities, let's talk the traits real quick. He has Final Vengeance, which whoop-de-doo-dah-day. He can just, smack somebody before he dies. But that Gravis armor coming back in here and being, 500 more than Bellator's means Calgar is an absolute unit when it comes to taking damage. Almost 3,000 damage, or 3,000 armor that you have to go through. Now, his own damage isn't anything to write home about, but that active ability, the Gauntlets of Ultramar, absolutely shred through anything adjacent to him and can clear the battlefield very quickly. Now, it does significantly less damage to units that are within two range, but he can hit them as well and provide a good amount of damage. That makes him very strong for PvP. Now, also for PvP as well, his buff comes in and does exactly what you would expect it to, especially when he synergizes with units like Celestine or other Imperial units that you have on the battlefield. He can really level up their damage and punch through even very tanky units. Now, 7,200 health, unbuffed, he's an absolute menace to society. Calgar is a great character and highly recommend that you farm him out. Now, let's talk about some of the contributors to this project. Of course, this whole entire thing would not have been possible if it wasn't for Twelver. Awesome job recommending this content. I think he got it from a different game that he played before, and he was like, hey, why don't we have something like this? He was like, you know what? I'm going to make it. Kudos to you, man, and thank you so much for allowing me to use my platform to push it. I appreciate it. Now, to everybody that contributed to this, hi, me, but Stefan, Limfimdingy, Probes, Ingvar, Vevictus, Big Bad Wolf, and Krogarth. All these people are great individuals in the community to talk to, always super nice and helpful. I've talked hours with both Stefan, Ingvar, Probes, Vevictus, Crow. Haven't interacted too much with Big Bad Wolf, but awesome individuals. Glad to be playing this game with them. So, now that we've talked about, let's recap real quick and take a look at the overall faction ranking. And overall, the Ultramarines get a 3.5 star ranking, or 3.5 servitors. Now, a little quick note here from Ingvar. The plot armor smurfs who win even when they lose. The Ultramarines are an uneven faction with several strong and weaker characters. So, we see Calgar, Bellator becoming the absolute powerhouses of this unit. And Certus, Varro, and Incisus all need modernization, or maybe a character that can bring them back to life like Eldrion did. And definitely, focus on Bellator, focus on Calgar if you get them. Well, obviously you'll have Bellator, but focus on Calgar if you get him. And pretty much keep them strong enough to be relevant in content they're required for, but other than that, Certus, Varro, and Incisus can just sit there and collect dust for all I'm concerned. And that comes into the top picks. Bellator, Calgar, fantastic. And the obituary here coming in, Certus, Incisus, and Varro. Now, pushing this one more time because I still keep getting asked about it. The code, please don't forget, Jace1K, get yourself your rec order and your gold. And here's the community Discord, the IVS Discord, which some of those stats were pulled from, so you can go ahead and join the community there and join a great alliance. If you care about the referral code, like I said a million times, it's there if you want to use it. Please don't feel obligated. I do appreciate the people that do. It is nice. I thank you all a lot. But go ahead and refer a buddy instead. And of course, if you need to message me, I prefer you go into the community Discord so we can have conversations there, or somebody else can answer your question that I might not be able to get to. I am being flooded with DMs and comments. I love helping you, I really do, and I'm trying to get to everybody, I promise, but with everything going on with work and everything else going on, sometimes I miss them. But you can always try direct messaging me on Discord, and I'll do my best to reply. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it went a little longer, as it always tends to do, but hopefully this is a form of content that you enjoy. Please let me know your honest, unfiltered thoughts below before we go live with, I think, the Adeptus Sororitas next. That way we can refine this process and deliver you a great product that helps you with your Tacticus journey. And until next time, everybody, peace.